Venom Original Sin, we follow Eddie Brock as Eddie is making some backroom deals with Jack-O-Lantern. See, Eddie Brock is a journalist for the Daily Globe, and Eddie knows that if he can get Jack-O-Lantern to cause some trouble and be the first one to write about it, Eddie can advance his career. But a few weeks later, as Eddie's hitting the scene to investigate Jack-O-Lantern's carnage, Eddie discovers that Spider-Man is already on the scene, or at least this seems to be Spider-Man. Spider-Man proceeds to beat the shit out of Jack-O-Lantern, but during the ensuing struggle, Eddie notices some cops trapped in a burning building. Instead of saving the cops, Eddie chooses to let them burn to death, instead prioritizing the ensuing struggle against Spider-Man and Jack-O-Lantern. Spider-Man eventually gets the upper hand, and then he goes to confront Eddie. But to Eddie's surprise, this is not actually Spider-Man. He's simply using the symbiote to pilot Peter Parker's body. Eddie explains to his younger self how he's come from the future to make sure he doesn't make the same mistakes that he did. At first, younger Eddie is not too receptive to what Venom is saying, but older Eddie leans on him a little bit, and then he starts seeing things his way. But as these two Eddies are having a heart-to-heart, future Eddie gets hit by a firebomb from Jack-O-Lantern. As Jack-O-Lantern and future Eddie duke it out, Jack-O-Lantern manages to get the upper hand, even slicing off Eddie's arm. But as younger Eddie tries to intervene and stop him from killing his future self, Jack-O-Lantern decides Eddie's more trouble than he's worth. Jack-O-Lantern throws his sword in order to impale young Eddie Brock. Older Eddie blocks the attack in order to save young Eddie's life. This results in older Eddie Brock getting electrocuted by Jack-O-Lantern's sword and then subsequently finished off with firebombs. But as Jack-O-Lantern has his back turned, young Eddie Brock manages to deal a finishing blow with a brick to the back of the head. Now remember, the Eddie Brock symbiote from the future was piloting Peter Parker's body, so in an act of selfishness, Eddie finally gets the headline he was looking for, as Spider-Man has been killed. Now, although Spider-Man has been killed, things have been going great with Eddie Brock's soon-to-be wife. Elsewhere at the Daily Globe, Eddie Brock begins to climb the ladder, as with Peter Parker dead, his primary competition is now gone. Then on top of that, there's plenty to write about, as with Spider-Man gone, things have gotten a hell of a lot more deadly. Rhino is out here lifting diplomats from moving trains, while Scorpion is out here decimating whole prison transports. Doc Ock funded years of research with a single heist, while Green Goblin took out all his competitors. This is all a result of Spider-Man being dead, but hey, Eddie Brock is living the life. But while Eddie Brock is living the life, another one of his counterparts exists in Illumia, the life force dimension that exists outside of time. For this Eddie Brock is illuminated. As this Eddie Brock travels through this realm, something reaches out to him. He asks who is this mysterious being, but this mysterious being is none other than him from the end of the line. This symbiote explains that he's the Eddie Brock that they all become, except for this one. But none of that matters, as this illuminated Eddie Brock has wasted his shot, and now Symbiote Eddie is here to help him unfuck this situation. Symbiote Eddie explains, by going back in time and attempting to fix things, you actually fuck things up a lot more by getting Spider-Man killed. Symbiote Eddie reminds Illuminated Eddie that the situation is still salvageable, as Illuminated Eddie is special. The light resurrected Illuminated Eddie in order to kill Null. The light turned him into a bright paladin. His light remade the symbiote hive into a place to heal and think. This illuminated Eddie hit the stars and went parts of the galaxy that no one has ever reached before. But instead of choosing to reign over Null's empire, this Eddie actually gave up the power when the time came around. But by going back in time and committing the original sin he did, it led to a chain of events that fucked up the timeline. Peter Parker was burned to death, but on the other side, Eddie Brock renewed his vows and kept climbing as far as his career goes. But with Parker gone, chaos was free to reign throughout the city and claim many lives. But at the very least, Eddie Brock got the fame he was looking for. The cost was just way too high. Illuminated Eddie wants to go back in time and make things right, as he realizes, due to the original sin he committed, he's been stuck here, essentially trapped in stasis. Symbiote Venom warns him he can help him go back in time and make things right, but he also warns him that this is his final time to repair the timeline. Symbiote Venom warns him that in order to make things right, he must first go back in time and start by rescuing those 2 cops that they let burn to death. As they go back to the night of the warehouse fire, it all starts with Peter Parker fighting Vulture. As Peter managed to subdue Vulture, he retires back to his house for some well-needed rest. But as Peter is sleeping, unbeknownst to him, the Venom symbiote pays him a visit and decides to pilot his body. As Venom pilots Peter's body, he tracks down Jack-O-Lantern as well as young Eddie Brock. Eddie proceeds to engage Jack-O-Lantern, and as he puts Jack-O-Lantern down, he goes and rescues the cops. But as he's rescuing the cops, he does manage to get the cops out, but unfortunately, the building collapses in on him. As Eddie Brock is under the rubble burning to death, the cops he just saved return the favor as they pull him out of the fire. But unfortunately, their problems have just begun, as Jack-O-Lantern has arrived to finish off who he thinks is Spider-Man. Venom engages Jack-O-Lantern as young Eddie Brock watches in the distance. As these two duke it out, eventually Venom managed to get the upper hand. Venom gives Jack-O-Lantern one last chance to retreat as he threatens to eat him. Jack-O-Lantern takes that opportunity to delta the fuck out of there, and on the way he bumps into none other than Eddie Brock. Jack-O-Lantern lets Eddie know he's more trouble than he's worth, and the deal is off. Spider-Man looks like the hero once again, while Eddie Brock wallows in his own despair. Elsewhere, in the Lumina, Illuminated Eddie is happy as he managed to repair the timeline with the help of Symbiote Eddie. But now, Illuminated Eddie disappears, as since he repaired the timeline, he no longer exists in this state. Symbiote Eddie lays down, knowing that all other Eddies are racing to get to where he is, so in the meantime, he's going to take a load off and stare at the heavens. The end. Thank you for watching.